Hey there, my name's Grant. This is High Struggling, I'm Dad. And this is a podcast about being better parents and better people. So that's what we're going to try and do. I wanted to chat today about something that I think is really important. And I think that's pretty overlooked by a lot of parents and a lot of people in general. And that is blaming our actions on other people. And in this specific example, it's to do with our kids. So I'll give you more context. I see a lot of people who may have a bad temper, may have bad coping strategies or mechanisms, and may act in a way that they're probably not proud of, but that's what they know how to do. And that can result in hurting relationships. And the relationships I'm most concerned with are your relationships with your kids. That's the thing that I think is really, really important. I think the world needs better parents. I think the world needs better people. So why not at least try and make the best out of ourselves in those scenarios in every way possible, really. But in this circumstance, I'm talking about those times when people say, when parents will say, "You look what you made me do. I can't believe you did this. I wouldn't have done this if you hadn't," etc. Now, I'm not saying that that may not be part of the truth, right? One of the kids throws a chair or throws food across the table and you yell or do something like that. You've got plenty of reason to be upset about that, plenty of reason to yell. That's fine. It's not questioning whether you have reason to do that. You definitely have reason. However, it's about blaming our actions on other people. Our kids aren't responsible for our stuff ups. Our kids aren't responsible for our mistake. They're not in charge of that. They're not in charge of what we do. Ultimately, we are grown people. We can decide to be a dick, or to be really nice, or to be fun, or to be lighthearted, or to be really strict, or to lose our temper or not. It's really up to us, and it's up to other factors as well. There's extenuating circumstances, right? There's those certain circumstances where things compound. So if you've had a bad night's sleep, you haven't eaten well, you've had a fight with your significant other, you've had a bunch of other things go on, your patience will be less. That's the truth. And how you handle that small amount of patience is going to be tougher than how you would if your tank was more full. So what I'm referring to is that these are all parts of the reason why we might get upset or more easily upset. They are contributing factors. No doubt about that. No doubt, no lie, that is 100% the case. It is something that contributes to it. Yes, it made it easier to lose our temper. It made it easier for us to make mistakes. But ultimately, we are the person that would make those mistakes. I'm not to blame for what my wife does. I'm not to blame for what my family do or my friends or anything like that. That's their choices. I'm responsible for me, though. They're not responsible for me. If I lose my temper, that's on me. I may have had heaps of reason to do so, but ultimately it's up to me. And this is a lesson that I have been very intentional to teach my kids, is about ownership and personal responsibility and what we can control. And what we can control. So there's three lessons really. And they're all massive themes within this podcast as well. You will see heaps of ownership, what we can control, and personal responsibility. So you will see that a lot. These are key themes throughout. It's not a secret. But I really do believe that people of all ages, young or old, kids to adults, I think these are crucial things to learn, crucial things to practice, crucial things to improve and to be aware of if we are going to have a more fulfilling life and an easier life too. And I'll explain the easier part. What I mean by easier life is that if you've grown up with someone, for example, that blames everything that they do, every mistake that they've made on you, everything they do wrong is your fault. Every time they get it wrong, it's your fault. Even if you know that's absolute rubbish, that does eat away at you a little bit. It does hurt you. It does hurt your confidence. It does hurt your belief in yourself. It does add to that feeling down. It can add to depression. It can add to anxiety. It's like you're walking on eggshells and not even trying to do so. Or it can at least feel like, even if you're not walking on eggshells, that you feel like maybe you should, or maybe it's easier to walk on eggshells. Maybe I should do that to avoid a fight or to avoid being blamed again, that sort of thing. So now, if we just break it down to what we're responsible for, we are just responsible for what we do. That's it. We don't pick up anyone else's mess because it's not ours to pick up. We can help other people to pick it up. That's fine if they want the help, but we're not going to do it for them because ultimately we're just carrying that. So this is something, this is something to expand on another time. But that particular concept in relation to our kids, I think, is really important because I really don't want to teach my kids that. What I want to teach my kids is that they're responsible for what they do and that they're not responsible for what anyone else does. Yes, things do add up. Yes, they may have done something wrong, but that's what they're responsible for. They're not responsible for then the next action of that other person. I'll give you an example. The other day, two of my kids were fighting. My eldest daughter, my eldest son. And I was saying to them, I think it was my eldest son. He was really annoyed and really upset, and he ended up hurting my eldest daughter. He took a swing or something like that. He ended up hurting my eldest daughter. And she was really upset about that, obviously. And he was very upset too, because the run of events happened that she was annoying him. She was frustrating him and teasing him. He teased her back. She escalated, and that escalated him. And then to the point where she was shouting over the top of him. So he went over and he took a swing. And I think he got her, or he was scaring her or something along those lines. He ended up hurting her. They're 5 and 9. He's 5, she's 9. And I was talking to them both, and I looked at who's responsible for what. I first checked that everyone was okay, comforted them, had a shoulder to cry on for a little bit, got the story from both of them. And what I always say to them is, I would like the full truth, please. I would like the full truth, the whole truth. I do not want your version of the truth. I want the play-by-play of what happened. Because what I find is that I get a version of the truth, but it's her version, and then I get his version. And there are normally details omitted from these versions. So I want the full version. I just said, I would like the full truth, please. I do not want a part of the truth. I don't want to find out later that you've kept part of the truth aside or kept part of the truth out of it. I would like to hear it all, please. So whether you messed up or not, I'd like to hear that. So I got the story out of them. It ended up being that she was teasing him for a joke. He took that personally. He escalated. Then she got upset at how he said something. Went back and forth, back and forth. But what ended up happening was she ended up getting hit. And I was telling my son, I said, buddy, you didn't start it. You could have got away. You could have got away without any problems. You could have got away and just left it at that. And you could have tried to fix it with her and said, please don't do that. Please stop doing that. And if she doesn't, and you have to walk away, you can walk away. And if it's still a problem, you can come and get me or your mother. That's what you could have done. And you could have been out of here, man. You wouldn't have gotten in trouble. You were so close. And you can see he's like, yeah, you're close. It's really close to getting away and didn't do the wrong thing. And I said, but now you've done the wrong thing, man. Now you reacted and your action was even worse than her action. So now you're in trouble as well. So I separate as much as possible. And some days the kids get it 100%. And other days it's a bit trickier. But usually when you separate it, you point out what they did right, what the other person did right, what they did wrong, what the other person did wrong, where they could have stopped, what they could have changed. Normally, I've found that that's a successful way of them learning a little bit more, having a bit of insight, and then ideally moving on from that situation, not to repeat it in the future. That's kind of what I'm going for here. So with that normally works. And I went to my son and I said, dude, you were so close. You did some of these things really well. You were calm at the start. Then when you lost your temper, then you couldn't get it back. You threw it away too far, couldn't get it back, and now we're here. So because of this thing that you did, and I point out the specific thing that he did, I said, because you hit her, this is the consequence. So you're going to miss out on this. You're going to help me with these chores. You're going to have this time out, whatever it was at the time. I can't remember. Specific actions, specific consequences. This is what you did, or this is what you didn't do, and this is what happens because of that. You know the rules. Same thing with my eldest daughter. I said, you know what you were doing. And she's like, yeah, I know what I was doing. And I get it. It's fun to tease, especially when you get a good reaction. I get it. I still do it. I'm growing. All right? I'm growing, and I'll get there. I probably won't get there, but I'm aware that I'm doing the wrong thing, and I will take responsibility for that action. Yes, that's fine. I get it. But so with this, I saw that what she was doing, she was teasing. She was really poking the bear unnecessarily. She wasn't trying to fix it. Then she became angry with what he was doing. Then he took a swing. She started kicking. People were going to get hurt. Both of them got hurt. So I pointed out to her, I said, girl, you know exactly what you were doing. You know that you were teasing him. So you know that you were doing the wrong thing off bat. But then he did something worse. But you still have to make amends for that situation. You're just responsible for this thing. You're responsible for what you did wrong, and he's responsible for what he did wrong. That's it. It's not, if you didn't tease him, he wouldn't have punched you. Or, that sort of thing where even though, yes, I guess you can technically say that in that scenario, hypothetically, that person would have been not hit or would have been less likely to hit, whatever it may be. But ultimately, we can't control the hypotheticals. We can just control what happened. So we're just going to take responsibility for what happened. Just keep it at that. And that's how I've applied that to my kids. I've applied that to breaking it down with them into steps, breaking it down to what they did right, what they did wrong, what they could change, where they could have changed it, what they could have changed it for, and then moving on from there. And for myself, I'm very conscious of how ways this has come up in my life too. I've noticed when other people have blamed their actions on other people. I've had friends who have done that, relationships that have done that. And ultimately, it's a really toxic way to live, is to, whenever you mess up, to blame someone else for your actions. That's a terrible thing to do, in my opinion, because ultimately you're hurting other people for what you did. And then you're also not acknowledging your shortcomings. Therefore, if you're not failing, if you're not getting it wrong, you don't need to change. So you're just circling that cycle of going, I shouldn't have to change. I don't need to change. It's your fault. You should change. So ultimately, you're blaming someone else for your actions. And we can get into that another time, and we will. But for this time, I want to focus as parents talking to your kids. There's been times with the kids where they've been full on. They've been fighting, they've been yelling, screaming, kicking, pushed over chairs, proper tantrum stuff. And there might be times where I am so dialed in, I am very calm. I am like water. I am just flowing from side to side. I am putting in the boundaries. I am calm, but firm. All that sort of stuff that I am trying to be. And I've been killing it for 99% of the time. But then the kid kicks my shins or screams in my face, and then I yell. And I do the octave, the octave shift. Stop it. That sort of thing. Or I yell, like that sort of thing. I've done that. That's fine. I'm trying not to yell. I do my best. You drop the octave, or you raise your voice, or you do something like that. And they either get upset, get scared, or it shuts everything down, or it's just an argument. And then it becomes an unnecessary argument you're having with a child, 5, 7, 9, whatever. It's not necessary. So then after that, I'm thinking to myself, man, I almost got through that. I was doing pretty well. I was streaking. I was on a streak just then. I was killing it for the first 5 minutes. Was dialed in, focused, killing it. Happy with that. But then that one instance, now I've got to make amends for that. Do I say to them, look what you made me do. Look what you did. You made me so angry. You made me yell. You made me this and that. Do I do that? No. I don't say that to my kids because I do not want them to be responsible for me. I don't want them growing up thinking that every time dad's mad, they're responsible for what dad did or said or how he feels, especially for a feeling. Same thing with mum. I don't want them to be responsible for mum. I don't want them to be responsible for dad, for their grandparents, for their aunties and uncles, for anybody in their life, friendships, relationships, anything. I want them to know that what they do is on them and what other people do is on those people. That's it. It's the separation. So how I normally go about that, I talk to the kid when they're calm, wait for the dust to settle, works best in my experience. Some kids, you'll be able to go in there straight away and do it. Other kids, I have to wait for the dust to settle, and then they're in their right mind to chat and to speak. I think the other day, I got into it with my oldest son. He screamed and yelled. I yelled back at him after he did a few not so nice things. I said to him he needs to leave the room. So he went to a different room. He was in there for a little while, waited for the dust to settle for him. I went in there. When he was calm, I said, mate, I'm sorry for raising my voice. I'm sorry for yelling. I'm not feeling good about that. How did you feel about it? He's like, I didn't really like it. I'm like, yeah, fair enough. I don't like being yelled at either. So I'm sorry for doing that. Now, I don't say now, but you did this and that's really bad and therefore I got angry. I said, I yelled and I'm responsible for that, so I'm sorry for yelling. On your side, can you please not yell? Can you please not kick and scream or whatever he was doing at the time? Can you please not do those things? Because I find it hard to be calm with someone that is acting like that. And even in the past, in different conversations, I've said, look, all the stuff you were doing, it does add to feeling mad and feeling sad. But ultimately, and I've said this because I really want it to be so clear, because I figure if it's clear to them at this age, it's going to help them so much in later life. So I say to them, we're talking about the things that they did wrong, the things that they did that hurt the situation, the things that did to hurt me or that other person. And then I'll say, those things, we can't be continuing doing that because, and you do the reflect thing. How do you feel when someone else treats you like that? How do you feel when someone else acts like that to you? And often they also do not like it. So they say, yeah, they understand. And I say, for me, well, I was feeling really upset. I was feeling really annoyed, really angry. I was trying my best to be calm. But then when that last thing happened, I lost it and I yelled, and I'm sorry for that. And I make it clear that what they did wasn't right, but how I reacted wasn't right as well. I separate it. I don't say, well, you were doing all these wrong things, then I got so angry that I lost it. I don't do that. I don't want them to learn that. I don't want them to be responsible for my feelings and my actions. I don't want your kids to be responsible for your feelings or your actions, because that sucks, because that's too much for a kid to carry. If a kid is responsible for everything their parents do, that is the most unwinnable situation. Their parent could be terrible. Their parent could be rubbish to them. Their parent could be destructive. But if that kid feels like, well, I've got to do the right thing, otherwise daddy yells, otherwise daddy hurts mum, otherwise mummy's going to drink, or all these things that have been blamed on. Some kids say horrific things because that's what they've been taught. Because if you're teaching your kid that they're responsible for stuff that you've done, you're throwing them in the deep end, but there's no sides to hang on to. There's no way to win that situation. They can't control you. They can't stop you. You are an adult. You will do what you want to do. And ultimately, kids will learn responsibility, but then they'll be fixers and then they'll get in that situation in later life. That's what DV stuff is. Domestic violence stuff is, some people think that they're worthy of that treatment, right? And again, we'll get into that another time. They think they're worthy of that. And if you're told that you're responsible for things, then you're going to grow up thinking that, oh man, if I only did the right thing, then they wouldn't have hurt they wouldn't have hurt each other. No, they would have done it anyway, but they would blame it on less people. That's it. But you were there and they blamed you. And that's horrible. So we don't want that for our kids. We want to be leading by example, take ownership and responsibility, and be accountable. Be accountable and don't blame. Just be honest, be upfront, and be truthful. Just separate it. It's easy. It's super easy. Just separate it. Ultimately, your kids are going to look at you to be the example for them. So if you're going to communicate that your wife's always responsible for when you lose your temper or for something going wrong, then they're going to start blaming her. They're going to start blaming people outside of themselves because they're going to see it's okay. But if you take ownership and responsibility, that's so important. Just pick up your mess, teach your kids to do the same. That's it. You don't have to take responsibility for each other's, just those other ones. I don't want you to be putting this on your kids either. I don't want for them to think that this is the way things are done. It's important that your kids learn from a young age that they're responsible for their actions, but they're not responsible for anyone else's. They don't have to carry a burden that's way too heavy to carry. So I hope that helps you guys. I hope that it serves as a reminder to teach your kids that they're responsible for what they do, but no one else. They're not responsible for what anyone else does. And for you as well, maybe you're carrying other people's burdens that you don't even realize in your relationship or anything. And that's a great thing to get out of, is to not necessarily not help each other with their shortcomings. That's helping, is fine. But you're not responsible for what other people do. Your kids are not responsible for what you do or what anyone else does. So be the example, help them as much as you can, and be a great example and teach them. So that's it. That's all I got for you. I hope it goes well. Have a great week. This is High Struggling. I'm Dad. I'm Grant. And check out Instagram, Facebook, anything else. I'm on YouTube and Rumble as well. I'm chucking everything up there. So go have a look. Take care. Bye.